Karen Whitmore's manicured finger trembled as she pointed at the empty concrete crater that had once been her neighbor's pool. "You cannot just drain an entire swimming pool without HOA approval," she shrieked, her voice carrying across Willowbrook Estates like a fire alarm. Behind her designer sunglasses, her eyes blazed with the righteous fury of someone who had found her calling. The second shocking moment came when she spotted the children, 3 muddy creatures who looked like they'd been dipped in chocolate, emerging from what appeared to be a makeshift slip-and-slide operation, using garden hoses and the pool's sloped bottom. Her own pristine twins, Madison and Bryce, stood frozen on her perfectly edged lawn, clutching their organic juice boxes and staring in horror at the unauthorized fun happening next door. The third moment that would haunt Karen's dreams occurred when she realized the mud wasn't just mud. It was her prize-winning rose garden soil, now streaming in brown rivulets down the storm drains, carrying with it 6 months of carefully cultivated organic fertilizer and her hopes for the annual Willowbrook Garden competition. "Davy T. Helm piece on." Karen's voice could have shattered the decorative garden gnomes she'd banned from the subdivision. Dave emerged from his garage, a tall man in paint-stained shorts, holding a pool skimmer like a shield. "Care to explain this disaster?" Dave's face remained calm, but Karen caught the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. "Pool pump died. Had to drain it for repairs. Thought the kids might enjoy." "Enjoy?" Karen's voice rose 3 octaves. "They're destroying property values. There are regulations. Section 4.7 of the HOA covenant clearly states that any alteration to water features requires written approval from the Architectural Review Committee. It's temporary, Karen. The pump parts arrive Monday." But Karen wasn't listening. She was calculating fines, violations, the emergency HOA meeting she could call. This was bigger than Dave's unauthorized fence stain from last spring or Mrs. Patterson's roe bird feeder. This was her chance to finally establish the order that Willowbrook Estates desperately needed. "Mom, can we play in the mud too?" Madison's voice was barely a whisper, but it hit Karen like a thunderbolt. "Absolutely not." Karen spun around, her yoga pants making a swishing sound that somehow conveyed authority. "We don't play in mud. We play with educational, developmentally appropriate toys on properly maintained surfaces." Dave cleared his throat. "Maybe we could set up the sprinkler on our lawn instead. Give all the kids a chance to cool off." "Your sprinkler isn't HOA approved either," Karen shot back, pulling out her phone. "I'm documenting this violation. And Dave, I'm calling an emergency board meeting. This chaos ends now." As she marched back to her house, Karen felt the familiar surge of purpose flooding through her veins. Finally, a real crisis she could sink her teeth into. By 7 p.m. that evening, Karen had transformed her living room into a war room. The emergency HOA board meeting she'd called was in full swing, with all 5 members crammed onto her beige sectional sofa, while she paced before a hastily assembled presentation board, covered in printed photos of Dave's violation. As you can see in Exhibit A, Karen pointed her laser pointer at a photo of muddy children. "This unauthorized pool drainage has created a public nuisance. Property values in the immediate vicinity could drop by as much as 15%. Board member Janet Rodriguez, a retired teacher with infinite patience, raised her hand. "Karen, where exactly are you getting that 15% figure?" "It's conservative," Karen replied without missing a beat. "I've been researching similar cases online. There was an incident in Phoenix where—" "Mom!" The voice came from the stairway. Madison stood there in her pristine pajamas, holding her tablet. "I looked up the Phoenix thing. That was about a sewage leak, not a swimming pool." The room fell silent. Karen's laser pointer wavered. "Madison, honey, Mommy is conducting important neighborhood business. Please go back to your room." But Madison didn't move. "The internet says temporary pool draining for maintenance doesn't require HOA approval in most states. It says, Madison." Karen's voice cracked like a whip. "Room. Now." After Madison disappeared upstairs, Karen turned back to the board, her cheeks flushed. Children don't understand the complexities of property management. Now, as I was saying, Board President Tom Mitchell, a man who'd been trying to retire from HR drama for 3 years, rubbed his temples. Karen, what exactly do you want us to do? Dave says the pump will be fixed Monday. I want sanctions. I want a formal violation notice, and I want a new policy requiring 48-hour advance notice for any pool maintenance that affects neighborhood aesthetics. That seems excessive, Janet said gently. Maybe we could just ask Dave to put up some temporary screening. Karen's eyes lit up. Compromise was weakness, but strategy was everything. Fine, but I want it in writing. And I want regular inspections to ensure compliance. The board exchanged glances. They'd seen Karen in full crusade mode before. The Great Garbage Can Incident of 2023, the Forbidden Wind Chime campaign, and they knew resistance was futile. All in favor of requiring temporary screening during major pool maintenance? Tom asked wearily. 4 hands went up. Karen's smile could have powered the subdivision. But as the board members filed out, Karen caught a snippet of conversation between Janet and Tom. She's getting worse. Did you see how she snapped at Madison? The words hit Karen like ice water. She wasn't getting worse. She was getting better at protecting what mattered, wasn't she? Upstairs, she found Madison still awake, staring out her bedroom window at Dave's backyard, where the empty pool gleamed under the security lights like the concrete crater. Mom, why can't I play in the mud sometimes? Karen sat on the edge of Madison's bed, her armor of authority suddenly feeling heavy. Because we have standards, sweetheart. Standards keep everything nice and orderly. But the Thompson kids looked really happy. Karen tucked the covers around her daughter, avoiding her eyes. Happiness isn't everything, Madison. But as she turned off the light, Karen couldn't shake the image of those muddy, laughing children, or the troubling question of when she'd stop believing that happiness mattered at all. Monday morning arrived with the subtlety of a freight train. Karen stood at her kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, watching Dave Thompson's backyard like a surveillance operative. The pool repair truck had been there since 8 a.m., and she could hear the distant hum of machinery that meant her victory was being systematically dismantled. Her phone buzzed. A text from Janet Rodriguez. Karen, we need to talk. Can you come by this afternoon? Before Karen could respond, her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Dave Thompson, holding what appeared to be a manila envelope. Her heart rate spiked. Had he discovered some loophole? Some way to fight back against her perfectly legitimate HOA enforcement? She opened the door with her best professional smile. Dave, I trust the repairs are going smoothly. Actually, Karen, that's what I wanted to discuss. Dave's voice was calm. But there was something different in his eyes, a steely resolve that made Karen's stomach flutter with unease. I got a call from my insurance company this morning. Apparently, someone filed a complaint about my pool maintenance. Karen's smile didn't waver. I have no idea what you're talking about. Really? Dave held up the envelope. Because I also got a visit from the city inspector. Seems someone reported a potential safety hazard, children playing in an unsecured construction zone. The words hit Karen like a slap. She hadn't called the city, had she? The weekend was a blur of phone calls and research and righteous indignation. I'm sure it was just a concerned neighbor, she managed. The inspector was very thorough, Dave continued. Found some interesting things, like the fact that your fence extends 18 inches onto city property. And your sprinkler system appears to be connected to the main water line without proper permits. Karen's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the entryway tile. That's completely different. Those are minor issues that. Actually, they're not. Dave's voice remained maddeningly calm. See, when you involve city officials in neighborhood disputes, they tend to be very thorough. Your irrigation violation alone carries a $500 daily fine until it's corrected. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Karen gripped the doorframe, her mind racing through calculations she didn't want to make. You can't. This is retaliation. I'll report you to. To who, Karen? The HOA board you've been bullying for 3 years. The neighbors who cross the street when they see you coming. The city officials who now have a very thick file with your name on it. Behind Dave, Karen could see her neighbors, Mrs. Patterson with her forbidden bird feeder, the Johnsons with their slightly too tall grass, the Millers with their unauthorized garden gnome, all standing in their yards, watching the confrontation with poorly concealed satisfaction. "This isn't over," Karen whispered. "Actually, it is." Dave handed her the envelope. "That's a formal complaint. I'm filing with the HOA board about harassment. Janet thought you should see it before tonight's meeting." As Dave walked away, Karen tore open the envelope with shaking fingers. The document inside was 3 pages of meticulously documented incidents. Every phone call, every violation notice, every time she'd made a scene over some minor infraction. At the bottom, signatures: 12 residents requesting her removal from the board. "Mom." Madison appeared beside her, drawn by the sound of breaking ceramic. "What happened to your coffee cup?" Karen looked down at her daughter, really looked at her for the first time in months. Madison's eyes were wide with concern, not fear. When had Karen stopped seeing the difference? "I made a mistake," Karen said quietly. The words felt foreign in her mouth. "Are you going to fix it?" Karen stared out at the neighborhood she tried so hard to control, at the messy, imperfect, beautifully human chaos of people just trying to live their lives. The pool was almost full again, and she could see the Thompson children pressed against their back window, waiting for permission to dive back into their summer. "I don't know if I can," Karen admitted. But for the first time in years, she found herself wanting to try. That evening, as she prepared for what might be her last HOA board meeting, Karen made a decision that surprised even her. She picked up her phone and dialed Dave Thompson's number. "Dave, it's Karen. About tonight's meeting. There's something I need to say first." The line was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm listening." Karen took a deep breath and stepped into the unknown territory of being wrong. And maybe, just maybe, finding a way to be right again.